Brielle Whitmore stood in front of the tall glass building in Atlanta, staring up at the top floor. Her heart was beating fast. Not the good kind of fast. Something felt wrong. She had carried a heavy feeling since she woke that morning. She couldn't explain it. Just a weight pressing against her chest, as if her heart already knew what her mind hadn't discovered yet. She walked into the lobby. The security guard, an older man named Curtis, looked at her as though he'd seen a ghost. "Mrs. Whitmore, I didn't know you were coming in today." "I wasn't planning to," Brielle replied with a small smile. "I just wanted to surprise my husband, bring him lunch." For the briefest moment, Curtis's smile disappeared. Then he forced it back. "That's nice," he said carefully. "You know what? Let me call upstairs first." "No need." Brielle was already walking toward the elevator. "I know the way." She never noticed. The moment the elevator doors closed, Curtis reached for the phone. The top floor was unusually quiet. Too quiet. Normally there were ringing phones, conversations, footsteps, the constant rhythm of a successful company. Today, nothing. Only silence. The kind of silence that waits for something terrible to happen. As Brielle walked through the office, people stared. Assistants glanced up from their desks. Whispers stopped the instant she passed. Nobody smiled. Nobody greeted her. Every face carried the same uncomfortable expression, like they all knew something. She didn't. Still, she kept walking toward Do-hyun's office. The door was closed. That part was normal. What wasn't normal was Grace. His personal assistant practically jumped from her chair. "Mrs. Whitmore, please, let me just—" "It's fine, Grace." Brielle smiled politely. "I'll just knock." "No, wait." But it was already too late. Her hand was on the handle. She opened the door. Time stopped. Do-hyun sat on the edge of his desk, his shirt half unbuttoned. Standing inches away was Siri, his secretary. Her hand still rested against his chest, as though she'd been caught in the middle of something. No one spoke. No one spoke. The room became fully still. Brielle stared. Her mind searched desperately for another explanation. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe this was some misunderstanding. They couldn't. Then Siri slowly stepped backward and smiled, not embarrassed, not ashamed, satisfied. That single smile destroyed every excuse Brielle's heart had been trying to invent. She looked at her husband. "Do-hyun, what is this?" He calmly buttoned his shirt. No panic, no urgency, no guilt. As if his wife wasn't standing in front of him watching her entire world collapse. "Brielle," he said evenly, "you should have called first." Silence. That was his answer. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Just, "You should have called first." Behind Brielle, employees had gathered. Executives, assistants, interns. Phones were already raised, recording, watching, waiting. "I should have called first?" Her voice cracked, but she refused to lower her head. "Do-hyun, your secretary's hand was on your chest." Sari folded her arms, completely unbothered. "Maybe if you actually paid attention to your husband, he wouldn't have needed to look somewhere else." A sharp gasp spread across the office. Someone whispered, "Oh no." Brielle didn't even look at Sari. She kept her eyes on her husband, waiting for him to defend her, waiting for him to tell everyone this had gone too far, waiting for him to choose his wife. He never did. Instead, he sighed, like she was the inconvenience, like she had interrupted his schedule. "Brielle, I've been meaning to talk to you." His voice sounded cold, professional, like he was discussing quarterly profits. I'm tired of this marriage. I'm tired of coming home to the same conversations, the same arguments, the same everything. Do-hyun, I want a divorce." The words struck the room like a gunshot. Nobody moved. A folder slipped from someone's hands. Papers scattered across the polished floor. No one bent down to pick them up. Brielle simply stared at the man she had loved for 2 years, the man she had stood beside, the man whose company she had quietly rescued more times than he would ever know. And this was how he ended it. Not privately, not respectfully, publicly, with his secretary standing beside him, smiling. "You're doing this here?" Her voice trembled. "In front of everybody?" "I didn't plan it this way." For a brief second, something almost resembling guilt crossed his face. Then it disappeared. "But since you're here, might as well get it over with." Get it over with. 4 words. 2 years. Reduced to 4 words. Brielle slowly looked around the room. Grace couldn't meet her eyes. Curtis's warning call still glowed on a phone screen. Every employee, every assistant, every executive already knew. Everyone, except her. She looked back at Do-hyun one last time, then she spoke. Okay, just one word. No screaming, no pleading, no tears. Only, okay. She turned around and walked away. Her heels echoed across the marble floor, each step steady, each step controlled. Behind her, Sari laughed, softly, satisfied. The sound followed Brielle all the way to the elevator. The doors closed. No one saw the expression on her face. No one understood what that quiet okay really meant. It wasn't surrender. It wasn't defeat. It was the calm before something much, much bigger. 3 years earlier, Brielle Whitmore grew up in a small brick house on the east side of Atlanta. After losing both of her parents at a young age, she was raised by her grandmother, Miss Odessa. Money was always tight. Miss Odessa sold hair grease and hot combs from a folding table on the front porch, doing everything she could to keep food on the table. At night, Brielle studied beneath the glow of an old lamp, one that flickered every time the wind pushed against the house. Life wasn't easy, but Brielle had something rare, a mind that understood numbers. Numbers made sense to her. They followed rules. They told the truth. She could look at a pile of unpaid bills and somehow know exactly how far each dollar could stretch. Before her grandmother even finished counting, her teachers called her gifted. Miss Odessa simply smiled and called her my little calculator. She told anyone willing to listen that one day her granddaughter would change the world. Brielle earned a scholarship to study finance. 2 years into college, she spent her nights working at a hotel, helping her grandmother keep the lights on. Then, everything changed. One evening, the hotel hosted an international business dinner. Brielle was covering the front desk when a tall, sharp-dressed man stormed through the entrance. His face was tense. His voice was impatient. He was speaking rapid Korean into his phone, clearly frustrated. That man was Kang Do-hyun. He barely noticed Brielle. He was too busy arguing over a merger that was falling apart. Something about a financial error nobody could find. While he paced across the lobby, his laptop remained open on the counter. Brielle wasn't trying to invade his privacy, but numbers were numbers, and one detail immediately caught her attention. The moment his phone call ended, she spoke. Your subtotal on page 4 doesn't match your tax calculation. Do-hyun slowly turned toward her, annoyed, confused. Excuse me? Page 4, Brielle repeated calmly. Someone rounded the third column incorrectly. It's a small mistake, but it's throwing off the entire projection. He stared at her, then walked back to the laptop. He opened page 4, checked the figures. Silence. She was right. One tiny mistake, worth nearly $2 million. He looked down at her name tag. Brielle? Yes, sir? How did you catch that? She gave a small shrug. I like numbers. They don't lie to you. People do. For the first time that week, Do-hyun laughed. A real laugh. And neither of them knew it then. But that moment changed both of their lives. He returned to the hotel again and again, always finding another excuse to speak with her. Eventually, he offered her a real job, helping review financial reports while she finished college. Brielle almost refused. She didn't trust wealthy men, especially the ones who smiled too easily. But Miss Odessa only laughed. Baby, God opens doors. You just got to decide if you're walking through or standing there looking dumb. So, Brielle walked through. Within a year, she wasn't simply reviewing reports anymore. She was finding problems nobody else could see. Errors buried deep inside contracts, vendors quietly stealing money, entire departments hiding losses for years. She corrected everything, quietly, without applause, without recognition, without asking for credit. Do-hyun noticed. Not only her intelligence, but her character. She treated janitors the same way she treated executives. She never asked him for expensive gifts, never demanded attention, never chased his wealth. She simply worked and cared. He fell in love. One evening, on a quiet rooftop overlooking Atlanta, without cameras, without reporters, without a crowd, Do-hyun asked Brielle Whitmore to marry him. He looked more nervous than he had ever looked during any business meeting. She smiled and said yes. Their wedding was small, private, peaceful. Brielle entered his world, but she never truly belonged there. The executives' wives never accepted her. She wasn't Korean. She didn't come from wealth. She had no interest in status or gossip. She didn't mind. She still had Miss Odessa. She still had Do-hyun. For a while, that was enough. But there was something nobody knew. Not the executives, not the board, not even Do-hyun himself. Brielle never stopped watching the company's numbers. Whenever she noticed something suspicious inside the reports he brought home, she quietly corrected it. Before he ever realized there was a problem, when fraud threatened one of his departments, she found it first. She worked through a trusted lawyer, protecting Do-hyun's reputation without ever telling him. She never wanted recognition. She did it because she loved him, because that was what she believed marriage meant. She never asked for a title. She never asked for payment. She only hoped one day he would notice her, the way she noticed everything else. He never did. Back in the present, Brielle sat silently in the back seat of a taxi. The city blurred beyond the window. She replayed every memory, every late night, every quiet sacrifice, every problem she solved, without anyone knowing. Every time, she chose him before herself. And in the end, he stood before his entire company and called her a burden. She wiped away a single tear, only once. Then she stopped, no more tears. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and opened her banking application. Then she opened another folder, one she hadn't touched in almost a year. Its name was simple: backup. Inside were 2 years of evidence, every correction, every financial mistake, every hidden crisis, every problem she had quietly solved to protect his company, each file time-stamped, organized, saved. She had never intended to use any of it against him, but now she wasn't so sure she wouldn't. 2 weeks after Brielle walked away, Kang Do-hyun's company began falling apart. Quietly, almost invisibly at first. No one understood why. The first problem seemed small. A vendor contract, one that should have renewed automatically, didn't. Then came a financial report. The numbers refused to balance. The finance department checked them once, then twice, then 3 times. The error remained. Days later, a major partnership with a shipping company in Busan collapsed overnight. The official reason, a costly miscalculation in projected expenses. Months of negotiations, gone. Do-hyun sat alone inside his office. Spreadsheets covered his desk. Numbers that had once spoken clearly now looked like a foreign language. How does a $2 million error appear out of nowhere? His voice stayed controlled, but the frustration beneath it was impossible to hide. Across from him, Finance Director Mr. Park lowered his eyes. "Sir, we've checked everything 3 times. We still can't explain it." He hesitated, then quietly added, "It's almost like someone used to catch these mistakes before they became real problems." Silence. Do-hyun didn't respond. His expression remained still. But for a brief moment, something shifted behind his eyes. Someone used to catch them. He dismissed Mr. Park without another word, then sat alone, thinking. Across town, Grace sat inside the company break room. The door was closed. She kept looking over her shoulder before making a private video call. "Brielle, please." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "I know you don't work here anymore. I know what happened was wrong. But the Henderson contract is a disaster. Nobody can find the currency conversion error. If we don't fix it by Friday, we'll lose the entire deal." Miles away, Brielle sat peacefully on her grandmother's porch. A glass of sweet tea rested in her hand. She listened, then answered calmly, "Grace, that's not my problem anymore." "I know, but nothing." Her voice never changed. Do-hyun made that very clear 3 weeks ago in front of everybody. Grace closed her eyes. "I'm sorry, Brielle. I truly am. None of us knew he was going to do it like that." Brielle looked out across the yard. "You knew enough to try and stop me from opening that office door." Grace had no answer. The silence said enough. The call ended. Miss Odessa had heard everything. She rocked gently in her old chair, then smiled knowingly. They finally realized what they lost. Brielle allowed herself the smallest smile. "Took them long enough." Miss Odessa nodded. "Baby, some people don't appreciate the roof until the rain starts coming in." That same week, the internet found the story. Someone inside the company had recorded the confrontation. Not all of it. Just enough. Do-hyun, coldly ending his marriage. Sari's smug remark, and Brielle's quiet, "Okay." The video spread with astonishing speed, 2 million views in only 3 days. Then, Miss Odessa saw it. Without telling Brielle, she opened her phone, pressed the live button, still wearing her housecoat, still wearing her hair rollers. She looked directly into the camera. "Y'all want to talk about my grandbaby?" Her voice remained steady. Let me tell you something. That girl grew up with nothing and built something. She saved that man's company more times than he'll ever know. And what did she get in return? Humiliation in front of his entire staff. She adjusted one of her rollers, then continued. And another thing, any man who needs an audience to end his marriage is a coward. A real man handles his business at home, not for applause. She ended the live stream. The internet did the rest. By morning, millions had watched it. People everywhere started calling her this Grandma Odessa. Her words became quotes, memes, videos, news stations replayed them. Doohyun's company began trending for all the wrong reasons. Inside headquarters, panic spread quickly. The board demanded explanations. Investors grew nervous. Questions multiplied faster than answers. And for the first time in years, Dohyun experienced something unfamiliar. He was no longer in control. He called Sari into his office, hoping she could help. Instead, she barely looked at him. Her attention never left her phone. Sari, I need you focused. The Henderson deal, I'm handling it. Her answer was sharp, without emotion. Handling it how? No one can find the error. I said, I'm handling it. She stood, walked out, never waiting for permission. Dohyun remained seated, watching the closed door. Something had changed. Ever since the divorce became public, Sari wasn't affectionate anymore. She wasn't patient. She wasn't pretending. She had become cold, distant, always texting, always disappearing into hallways to answer calls she never wanted him to hear. He ignored it. That was his first mistake. Late that night, the office was almost empty. Doohyun noticed his office door standing slightly open. He stepped into the hallway, then stopped. Voices. Sari's voice. Low. Careful. I told you, it's under control. The merger falls apart either way, whether he figures it out or not. Just be patient. Once the stock drops low enough, your company buys the division for pennies. The words landed like ice. Doohyun didn't move. He listened. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He thinks they're random mistakes. He has no idea. I've been feeding you internal reports for months. His hands slowly tightened, his breathing slowed. Then Sari laughed, softly. Please. Once this deal collapses, I'll have more than enough money to disappear. You just make sure your company is ready the second the stock crashes. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. Doohyun finally understood. Sari had never loved him. She had been planted inside the company. Every stolen report, every failed negotiation, every missing number, every collapsing deal. It had all been deliberate, even the public humiliation. It wasn't an accident. It was strategy. Brielle had to be removed because Sari knew exactly who had been quietly protecting the company. She knew. As long as Brielle remained, her plan would never succeed. Doohyun slowly stepped backward. His mind raced. His chest felt unbearably heavy. The truth had finally arrived. Too late. He had thrown away the one person who had always protected him for the one person who had been trying to destroy him the entire time. Dohyun didn't sleep that night. He sat alone inside his car, parked outside the office. 1 hour passed, then another. He never started the engine. One sentence kept repeating inside his mind. I've been feeding him the internal reports for months. Again and again and again. Sleep never came. By sunrise, his decision had been made. He would not confront Sari, not yet. Suspicion wasn't enough. He needed proof. Proof strong enough for the board, for the lawyers, for everyone who would eventually demand answers. Because right now, all he had was a conversation overheard in a hallway. And Sari was intelligent enough to deny every word. He began searching quietly. Emails, financial reports, contracts, failed negotiations, every document connected to the company's recent collapse. Hour after hour, a pattern slowly emerged. Every failed deal, every missing number, every costly mistake led back to information only a handful of people could access. And every single trail ended with one name, Sari. She had handled the paperwork every time. Then he found something unexpected. An old shared drive, buried beneath forgotten folders. Its title was simple. Corrections. BW, he opened it. Silence filled the room. 2 years of quiet work. Vendor overcharges discovered. Corrected. Fraud inside the shipping department. Stopped before anyone outside the company ever knew. Contract errors, tax mistakes, currency calculations, every problem carefully documented. Every correction, time-stamped. Every file completed by Brielle. Doohyun slowly leaned back. His eyes remained fixed on the screen. She had never spoken about any of it, never asked for recognition, never asked for a promotion, never asked for so much as a thank you. She had quietly protected his entire company while he attended board meetings, built his reputation, expanded his empire, never realizing how much of it rested quietly on her shoulders. 3 weeks earlier, he had called her a burden. He lowered his head into his hands. The silence was heavier than any words. Across town, Grace had made her own decision. She couldn't remain silent anymore. She had watched the company fall apart. She had watched Dohyun become more exhausted, more confused. With every passing day, enough was enough. She walked into his office without knocking. "Sir, there's something you need to know." Dohyun looked up. His face carried the weight of sleepless nights. "Grace, now isn't. It's about Sari." She didn't hesitate, and it's about Brielle. That stopped him. Grace drew a slow breath. "Everyone in this office knew Sari was chasing you. Not the sabotage. We didn't know that. But we knew she kept finding ways to get close to you. She canceled meetings, made sure she could be alone with you, and she kept telling you things about Brielle that weren't true." Doohyun's jaw tightened. "What things?" Grace hesitated, then answered. "She told you Brielle was seen with another man. At a coffee shop. You remember." He remembered. He remembered asking Brielle. He remembered her laughing, explaining it was her cousin, visiting from out of town. He had believed her, but not completely, because one tiny seed of doubt had already been planted. That was a lie. His voice was barely above a whisper. Grace nodded. "There was never another man. Sari invented the whole story. She's been pulling your marriage apart for almost a year. The day Brielle walked into your office, that wasn't an accident. Sari knew exactly when she would arrive. She planned it." The room became painfully still. "And no one told me?" Grace lowered her eyes. "We were your employees, not your friends. No one wanted to interfere. Brielle was the only person here who treated us like human beings. I should have spoken. I'm sorry." Doohyun said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The truth had finally reached him. That afternoon, he called Sari into his office. His voice remained calm, almost casual. "The Henderson deal. Walk me through it again." She barely looked away from her phone. "I already explained it. Currency conversion. These things happen. Interesting." Doohyun folded his hands calmly. "I reviewed the original files. There wasn't any conversion error. The numbers changed after the report was submitted. For the briefest second, Sari froze. Only a second, but it was enough. That doesn't sound right." Her answer came too quickly. "I also spoke with IT. They checked every login, every edit, every financial file." He watched her carefully. He went, "Would you like to guess whose account appears on every mistake that has cost this company millions?" The color slowly disappeared from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." She stood, defensive, careful. "I heard you." Doohyun's voice remained quiet. "Last night, in the hallway, on the phone. I heard everything." Silence. Then something changed. The gentle smile she'd worn for more than a year disappeared forever. Her face became cold, calculated, almost amused. "You really are slow," she smiled. "It took you this long? Why?" His voice never rose. "What did any of this give you?" "Money," she answered without hesitation. "A lot of money. My boyfriend's company has wanted your shipping division for years. You were never going to sell, so we made sure your stock would fall low enough so you'd have no choice." Doohyun stared at her. "And my marriage?" She smiled again, even colder. "That was just a bonus. Your little accountant wife was too smart, too careful. If she'd stayed, she would have caught me months ago. So I made sure you got rid of her yourself." She tilted her head slightly. "Men are remarkably predictable when a younger woman pays attention to them." Something inside Dohyun finally broke. He looked at her, without anger, without shouting, only disappointment. "Get out." His voice was calm. "Get out of my building." Sari picked up her bag, completely unashamed. "You can fire me, but you can't undo what's already happened. Your stock is falling. Good luck explaining that to your board." She walked away. Her heels echoed through the hallway, just as Brielle's had 3 weeks earlier. But this time, no one watched with sympathy. Every eye followed her with disgust. Evening settled over the city. Doohyun sat alone inside his office. The folder remained open. Corrections. BW, he stared at it without moving, without blinking. He had believed a lie and destroyed the one person who had quietly protected everything he built. He reached for his phone, dialed Brielle's number. It rang once, then twice, then voicemail answered. He said nothing. He ended the call, picked up his jacket, walked through the silent office, past employees who watched without speaking, past empty conference rooms, past everything he thought mattered. He entered the elevator. The doors closed. Minutes later, he was on his way to the airport. He was going to Atlanta. Do-hyun didn't wait for a driver. He stepped into the first taxi he could find and quietly gave an address. One he knew by heart, an address he hadn't visited in more than a year, back when life had still been simple. The small brick house looked exactly the same. The porch light was on. Miss Odessa's rocking chair sat empty beside the front door. Do-hyun walked up the steps. For the first time in years, his heartbeat felt louder than any boardroom, louder than any merger, louder than any business deal. He knocked. The door opened. Miss Odessa stood there in her housecoat. She looked at him once, then slowly folded her arms. Well, well. Look what the wind blew in, all the way from Korea. Mrs. Odessa. His voice stayed respectful. I need to see Brielle. Do you now? Please. It's important. She studied him, carefully, the same way she examined strangers trying to sell her something she didn't need. Finally, she stepped aside. She's out back. But let me make one thing clear. If you upset my grandbaby again, I've got a cast iron skillet with your name on it. Do nod it immediately. Understood. He walked through the house, then out the back door. Brielle sat quietly on the back steps, wrapped in a blanket, looking up at the stars. She heard his footsteps, but she didn't turn around, not immediately. You flew all this way. Her voice was calm. It must be serious. Brielle, let me guess. She slowly turned toward him. The company's falling apart. Sari is gone. And now you need me to fix it. He stopped walking. How did you... Grace called. A few hours ago. She told me everything. Brielle stood slowly, pulling the blanket closer around herself. So answer one question. Why are you here? Because your company needs saving, or because you actually miss your wife? Silence. Do-hyun searched for the right words, not as a businessman, not as a negotiator, as a husband. As painful as it is to admit, both. But mostly, the second. Brielle waited. Expression unreadable. I found the folder. Corrections. BW. I saw everything. 2 years. 2 years of you protecting my company without asking for recognition. I learned Sari lied to me. She planted doubts. She planned everything. And he paused, his voice quieter now. I threw away the smartest, the kindest, the most loyal person in my life because I let my pride and someone else's lies blind me. Brielle looked at him. That's a nice speech. Did your lawyers write it? No. A faint breath escaped him. I wrote it on the plane. I crossed it out. 4 times. For the smallest moment, the corner of Brielle's mouth moved. Almost a smile. Do-hyun stepped closer. Brielle, I humiliated you in front of everyone. I said things I can never take back. I chose flattery over love. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve to ask, but I needed to tell you the truth face to face, not through lawyers, not through messages, not through anyone else. Then without hesitation, he lowered himself onto one knee. There, in the grass behind Miss Odessa's house. I'm not here to save my company. It will survive or it won't. I'm here because I was wrong, because I love you, and because these last 3 weeks have been the loneliest of my life. Silence. Brielle simply looked at him. Behind the kitchen window, a curtain shifted. Miss Odessa was watching. Finally, Brielle spoke. Get up. He stood, unsure, waiting. You know something? She looked directly into his eyes. For 2 years. I fixed every mistake inside your company, and I never said a word. I didn't need applause. I didn't need credit. I only needed you. I just wanted you to see me, not the problems I solved, not the numbers I fixed. Me. I see you now. His voice barely rose above a whisper. She slowly shook her head. You see me now, because I'm useful again. That's different. No. His answer came immediately. I see you, because I finally understand what I lost. Not an employee. Not someone who fixed spreadsheets. My wife. The only person who never wanted my money, my company, my name, and I traded all of that for someone who wanted exactly those things. Brielle turned away, blinking quickly, holding back emotions she refused to surrender to. You embarrassed me. Her voice softened, in front of everybody. I know. You made me feel small. After spending 2 years making myself smaller, just to keep your peace. I know. His voice finally cracked. And if you allow me, I'll spend however long it takes trying to make that right. The backyard grew quiet, only crickets filled the night. Traffic hummed somewhere far away. Then Brielle crossed her arms. Here's what happens next. You go back to Korea. You fix your company. Publicly. You apologize. Publicly. Not only to me, to everyone who watched you humiliate me. You give me a real position, a real title, real pay, and real respect, not because you owe me, but because I'm good at what I do and I deserve it. Done. He answered instantly. I'm not finished. She raised an eyebrow, and while I decide whether this marriage still has a future, you're sleeping on the couch for at least 1 month. He blinked. The couch. She nodded once. At that exact moment, Miss Odessa's voice echoed through the screen door. Make it 2 months. Cheap behavior gets cheap consequences. For the first time, Do-hyun almost laughed. Understood. The couch. 2 months. Brielle finally smiled. A real smile. Small. Careful. We'll see. 3 months later, Kang Do-hyun stood before the entire company once again, but this time, no whispers filled the room. No secrets. Only applause. He introduced Brielle Whitmore as the company's new chief financial strategist. He publicly credited her for saving the company, not once, but many times. He apologized, openly, honestly, without excuses, without hiding. The truth belonged to everyone now. Sari and the company working with her faced multiple lawsuits for corporate sabotage. Their plan was finished. Miss Odessa's videos continued spreading across the internet. Millions followed her. Eventually, she launched her own online show where wisdom, common sense, and cast iron skillets shared equal importance, and Brielle walked into the company each morning, no longer hidden behind someone else's success, no longer invisible, no longer the silent fixer. She walked in as herself, seen, respected, valued, exactly as she should have been from the very beginning. And the couch, that lasted exactly 2.5 months. Miss Odessa made sure of the extra half.